Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Stumptown, a great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I was really interested by that opening we got, because at first I was waiting, is that going to say like, a couple hours forward, but I guess it didn't. I guess maybe it's supposed to be symbolic of something, and maybe kind of a little foreshadowing, but also potentially like, maybe there's something on Dex's mind that kind of makes her think. I don't know. It was just kind of interesting because like she ended up shooting someone in the woods and it turned out to be Gray. But it's like I said, I expected it to be like 48 hours earlier, something like a cold open like that. But it turns out no, that was all a dream because even at the end of the day, that didn't come out like that. So it's like you don't know what to kind of necessarily make of that. But obviously, Dex wakes up in the hospital, but she's being arrested for murder. Obviously, you have Hoffman being like, there's no way Dex did this, but Cosgrove was like, you're not getting anywhere near this case. So it's her and Detective Lee interrogating Dex about the whole situation. And obviously she's explaining that, this has like a connection to like Benny and stuff like that, which like obviously like, he was part of the OU. Like, what's this got to do with anything? And obviously Dex is like, because obviously it doesn't look good because they're like, how'd you get in there? She's like, the door, and it's like, all right, how about you go ahead and admit about the crowbar because it'll sound better from you because we already know you came in through the crowbar. She's like, fine, I got in there. And even Hoffman's on the side, stop talking, Dex, stop talking because it's just you're going to dig yourself deeper. And lo and behold, who shows up? None other than Lionel, Hoffman's dad. So it's like, hey. So I was like, did Hoffman call him or did he just? It's like there's no way he just randomly showed up. I guess like when the moment Dex got arrested, he contacted, or maybe like before the interrogation started, he called her and we just didn't get to see it on screen. But the fact that I called him, but so now he's representing Dex and it's like, we out of here. And she's like, he was like, we outie. And she's like, yeah, we outie. So, but obviously this puts them in a very complicated situation, especially when Dex has a sit down with not only, Gray and Lionel. She's explaining everything, which obviously when she explains everything, it's like, so you actually have motive to commit this murder. Also, your son is kind of mixed up in this too, so he can't really go at this case in a particular way because he'd have to expose the fact is that he gave me the information illegally to kind of go down this route. So he kind of has skin in his game as well, which obviously it's an interesting thing because obviously Lionel being the father that he is, it kind of puts him in a very compromised position because he goes to Hoffman at one point and talks about the fact is you put me like the fact of the matter is if I'd known about this ahead of time I would have never taken this case because for him even he's like I'm supposed to be proving that this girl is innocent. You believe her being innocent. You're already off in a better position than I am, even though I am the one trying to defend her. But it's like for him it's like you doing this is going to put you in this very compromised position that the fact is you doing what you're doing for her is you lose your badge. It's like you slept with her, right? And he was like, but the thing is it isn't just like sleeping with her. Like for Hoffman, Dex means a lot more. Like, there's a lot of complicated feelings there. Like, he has a thing for her because, the same way Gray has feelings for her. Like, granted, her and Gray have more history, but the fact of the matter is Hoffman really feels something towards Dex, and obviously Dex is in that complicated situation because of the whole Benny thing, so relationships has never really kind of been her thing, so, but it doesn't change the fact, even with things kind of being what they are with Lee, which you kind of feel bad because you're like, because there's a part of you that's like, the fact is, even at the end of the last episode, she was like, what was that? He was like, it was nothing, and it was like, because he won't even tell, even at that point, he didn't tell Lee about, like, what was going on, so that made me think, like, Dex is still kind of that thing of, like, what she's up to and what our conversations, he still kind of kept secret from. I mean, to be fair, they've been partners and they've been working together, but the fact is, it's still just a situation of, like, this is still kind of a new thing, but regardless, Lionel did give him a line of, like, either you kind of handle this or it'll basically be handled for you, because eventually this is going to come out. But the point is, like, who's going to shift the narrative? Are you going to let someone else control the narrative? Or are you going to, at the moment that came out Lionel's mouth, you're like, you already kind of had a feeling of which way things were going to go, especially later on, because I was like, you can tell he was about to confide in Lee. I was like, I don't know, that's probably not going to be a good idea, but he completely confides in her about everything. And then it's like, that means Dex actually has motive for the murder and everything. And when she's talking to Cosgrove, I was like, maybe she won't say anything because she seems like she's beating around the bush. Hey, maybe you won't. And she's like, Dex has motive for the murder. I'm like, come on, Detective Lee, come on, that sucks. But I'll at the same time, because I'm not even like I love the fact is there's obviously so much going on at one time, because obviously Ansel's kind of got his whole thing. I kind of figured what Ansel's thing was pretty early on. I was like, it's not going to be the whole girlfriend situation. It's going to be what it ends up being, but we'll get to that soon enough. But the fact of the matter is, Gray's dealing with the fact that his dad shows up, and it's kind of what I thought at first. I was like, no, your dad was just, he didn't know, it was like he felt like he couldn't make it up to you, so he just kind of felt like, he was scared, but it's like, you know what, you don't want me here, I'll leave. But it's like, no, go ahead, come, if you need a place to crash, stay. It's like, what place did he? It's like, how do you do in the game? It's, oh, he got third place. I'm like, they got in third or something. I was like, at first I won't lie to you, I was like, I had income. I was like, that seemed a little suspicious. Like, are we going to find out you lied about that? I wasn't sure about that, but nevertheless. The fact is, I really like the whole investigation with this situation is like, obviously Gray hearing all this about, because obviously like Lionel was like, he's taking a drink and stuff like that. And he's like, all right, because, Gray had given to him. It's like, all right, so what's going to happen is, the fact of the matter is, you're going to stay here. You want to talk to anyone. You want to talk to someone? You talk to me first. You want to do anything? You talk to me first. You want to get a slice of pizza? You talk to me first, So it's that type of situation. But obviously Gray's like, yeah, he doesn't know you like I know you, because he knew from the beginning, like, oh, Gray, that Dex is not going to sit still. She's going to jump all on top of this, and she continues her investigation. But we'll get to that soon enough. But the fact is that but then there was that moment between Gray and his dad, because it's like, oh, you knew that dude back in the day that could get you fake IDs and stuff like that, like fake stuff, so you can disappear and stuff like that, new identity and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah. It's like, can you get in contact with him? It's like, whoa, like he's trying to figure out like what this is all about. And Gray's like, oh, I want to help Dex disappear. It's like, oh, this murder did she commit? He's like, there's no way she did it. But it's like, and I like what he says is like, you can't do that running. And he's like, it's ironic coming from you. And he's like, exactly. The fact of the matter is, you're all running. You're always going to be looking over your shoulder, which is obviously that's a reason. I mean, it's kind of similar, because obviously he went through kind of a similar thing with the whole Max situation, because obviously like going on a run with her would mean always looking over his shoulder, which I'm still wondering if that could potentially tie into something going forward. That's something to kind of keep in mind. But the fact is, when it's all said and done, like Gray, for him, it's like his dad had made a whole point about like protecting your family and stuff like that. And his dad's like, yeah, protecting them from themselves sometimes. And obviously that's something that Gray has on occasion kind of done, that tried to protect Dex from herself, because she has a tendency to kind of like get so sucked up into things that she kind of goes a little off the deep end sometimes, just with everything that she's been through. And so the fact is, he also brought up the point of like, you would end up going back to jail and stuff like that, because also like because he ends up bringing this up to Dex later on, because she's like investigating all this, because she had gone to Sue Lin and brought up all this stuff about trying to, and I like that line from Sue Lin where it's basically like, oh, the past, just when you think you're okay with it, the narrative ends up getting switched up on you. So for example, like she just made amends with the whole thing. Like even Dex made amends like 2 episodes ago, like what went down. It's like for 12 years, they always believed, like she believed it was her fault that Benny died, and Sue Lin did the same thing as well. So it's like, especially that closure they got 2 episodes ago, it's like, oh, but then it's like history rewrote itself by being like, no, there was more to Benny's death. It wasn't just some like enemy combatant. He was killed by someone on our side. Like he was murdered. And so it turns into a thing of like, oh, like Dex is trying to find the people in his unit, and it's like someone's like, oh yeah, I burned all those letters and stuff like that between me and it's like, oh, a ritual and stuff like that. But the dude that works for her, it's like, yeah, like really? And he's like, yeah, that whole like ritual stuff, it kind of fools white people all the time. But I thought that was such an interesting thing of like, because even at first I was like, because you could tell the way she was looking and the way he was acting, I was like, oh, he knows she's lying, but it's like, why would she lie about it? But then you kind of find out, and it's actually kind of sad, because for her, it's like the letters between her and Benny never forgave her for Sue Lin breaking up Dax and him, and so for her, they never had an opportunity to kind of fix things. And for her, she's like, I think she said some stuff in those letters that she's not proud of at this point in time. That's why she didn't want Dex to see them, because it's like probably some hurtful stuff she probably said about Dex, probably some hurtful stuff she said to Benny just because she was mad because he wouldn't forgive her, So, but when it was all said and done, like Gray comes over and it's like, oh, like you're trying to track him down. You track down one of the people. Well, because I forgot like which order that in. I think that ended up happening And so obviously Gray wants to go with her because it's like, at the end of the day, how do you see this thing playing out? And it's like, she's like, I don't know, because Gray brought up the fact is, I came here before this place was erected. And she's like, no, don't bring that up. But for him, it's like, I don't know how you will react when this situation comes down to what it comes down to. Because she's like, are you going to just bring him to justice? Because you want justice for Benny, sure. But it's like, how are you going to go about it? Are you going to let the police arrest him? Or are you going to kill him? And he doesn't want, And obviously Dax kind of accepts his help and everything, but sneaks away and kind of goes off on her own, as you would kind of expect her to do. And she ends up talking to Wolf, and Wolf kind of gives this sob story about, like, obviously, like, he knew what was going on. It was the others that were kind of involved. The fact of the matter is he was, sorry about it and everything, that he didn't ever put in a request that, and for him it's like, oh, I blamed myself because I'm the reason why Benny died. It was interesting because it's like, but Benny didn't accept any protection, and Wolf ended up saying like a particular line where it's basically, I couldn't tell whether the word was faith or fate. That basically, it almost sounded like, well, either he had faith because of like, oh, he felt like he was protected. Well, my thought was, I had heard fate as in like him and Dex were meant to be together, so it's like that grand destiny of like, oh, we're meant to be a thing. Like, what kind of, like, I think he had kind of faith that everything would kind of work out in the end, and that was kind of like, and obviously gonna make that, like, you can see that look in Dex's face, like, it's made her stomach sink, hearing that. But obviously she looks into the other people and ends up finding out about Murphy, who is a priest now, which is interesting. And there's a whole thing about like, oh yeah, she's like, I have to, I stole a file. Ooh, can't be returned and everything. She's giving a confession, and it's like, yeah, I broke into it. He died. And it's like, well, did you have something to do with it? She's like, no. But then it ends up kind of, it's like, oh, basically trying to get a confession out of him. He bolts. That kind of took me by surprise when he punched through the God, what do you call that? The confessional. When he punched through it like that, I was kind of surprised, and he took off running, bag full of money, and the money gets spread everywhere, and then Murphy disappears. So it was really interesting. Like, obviously Dex has got the money and is hoping to find a clue, and then you saw like the same serial numbers. I was like, oh, so that must have meant like they were all kind of like, I felt like they were, because I immediately was like, oh, they must be bills that are no longer in circulation. But then I was immediately like, there was some part of my brain that was like, because I was thinking immediately like, oh, they must be counterfeit bills or something like that. But it's like, if they were counterfeit, it would have been like the serial numbers would have been the same type of situation, to a certain extent. So that's why I was kind of like, but then it's like, that the serial number situation would have been the key to figuring out if it was all counterfeit. I mean, it also depends on how good the counterfeit is, but it turns out that's not the whole situation at all. And so I do like, the cops showing up there, and like, the fact is, I love that literally everyone works as a team to cover Dex being, and it's like, what do I do? So what are we going to do? And Gray's like, take the money and run. I was like, oh, so how's this going to play out? Cops come in. They walk past Tukey and Home Dude with a cooler and everything. It's like, she's like, hey, he's like, hey, Lieutenant Costco, which we haven't seen them be on screen together in a while. So it's kind of neat to see that. She's like, all right, have you seen that? She's like, no, kind of haven't. All right, open the cooler. And it's like, oh, all our vegetables, we're going to take them, and everything. And it's like, okay, so that's covered. They go to Gray. He's like, I haven't seen Dex. And then, like, I love his dad walks up and he's like, oh, yeah, I've seen her. And he's looking like, he's like, and he's like, oh, shut up, son. It's like, yeah, I saw her. She was downstairs at the bar. She left a couple hours. I think she got inside her truck. It was green, I think. And then, like, when the cops left, like, Mike kind of looks to Gray and Gray kind of looks at him. And I'm just like, oh, there's bonding and you held out like that. That was pretty dope. And you see, like, Dex kind of sneaking at, like, kind of the rafters a little bit. And then she kind of sneaks out. Gets to the roof, jumps down into Tukey's truck, and it's like, and I love the moment Cosgrove and Lee come out. They're like, yeah, order them to stop that. Are anyone going to stop that truck? I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then we see like, oh no, she's actually in the car with Ansel and he's driving. I was like, oh, like I said, I love that. That was like a full team, a full squad situation. I thought that was pretty neat how that whole situation was executed. So I was like, oh, dude, that's pretty dope. But at the same time, you have the whole situation of like Dex had gone to Miles about the money, but for him, he was pissed at, like, it's actually kind of sad in the end because it's like to see that relationship kind of break up a little bit right there. For her, it's like, I need you to do, for him, it's like, no, I'm kind of done doing favors for you. It's like, for him, it's like, well, you act like we're partners and stuff like that, and you ask me to do stuff and I do it for you, but now it's going to cost me everything because being a cop means the world to him. This is my career. Like, I'm potentially could lose everything and it's your fault. And she's like, I just need you. He's like, no. And it's so sucky because at the same time, a line that you always keep in mind, it takes two to tango. At any point in time, Miles happily wanted to help Dex out because he cares about her. You know, the fact of the matter is, when it was all said and done, like, you didn't have to tell her last episode that you found a guy that could help her get those DOD files. You didn't have to do that. You decided to do that. So it is kind of messed up. He put it all on Dex, but I get it. Because for him, it's always a situation of, I always come to help you, and you know, it's to my detriment. And it's just kind of like, what's the point? Like, you're kind of getting what you want in the end, and it kind of ultimately ends up screwing me up. Like, you've kind of messed everything up in my life right now. And obviously Dex kind of feels bad about it. But Miles does bring this to Cosgrove, but she's not willing to listen, especially when he kind of dives into, Murphy's on the run. It's like, how would you know he's on the run? And he's like, but obviously he's trying to make a point. She's like, the fact of the matter is, you're lucky you don't lose. You know, you better stop yourself, Miles, before things get worse. Because obviously it's like, you're supposed to follow a chain of command and stuff like that. Like, the fact of the matter is, you didn't even disclose like your connection to this case. You should have said that from the beginning, but you didn't. And obviously he looks at Lee, and she's like, I'm sorry. And Cosgrove was like, Lee, you don't have anything to apologize for. You did your job. And so it's that complicated thing. And when like she walks out, she's like, what did you expect me to do? Obviously you struggle with this. So obviously I didn't know what you were going to tell me, you know? And him is like, oh, at the end of the day, like, you know, I made my choice and you did too. And it's like, oh, it's so sucky because it's like you are totally into each other. But sadly that ended up falling apart. And there was even that line of him being like, what is this between us? She's like, are you asking me to go steady? And it's like a cute moment, but then kind of quickly turns to him telling her the truth. And now it's like, what this means for them potentially, like, this could destroy everything that's between them, you know, at the end of the day. And you're just kind of like, oh, that sucks. Because it seemed like something good was being built here, but, you know. And so when it's all said and done, you know, Lee tells him, oh, Murphy, he's dead, which we have Dex, who went to go to Wolf to protect him from Murphy, because she thought he was on the way cleaning house, because it's like, well, TJ's already been taken care of now, this and that. So luckily, you know, and it was like, was it Wolf? It's actually interesting because the whole thing doesn't involve the entire squad. It actually apparently includes Wolf, Murphy, and TJ. They were only ones that involved, because there was at least were they the only ones in the unit? Because I thought there were like other people in the unit as well. Because they had found out like Wolf was the only one that was apparently local. There was like two that were out of town and stuff like that. So that was kind of interesting at the end of the day. Like, I guess the rest of the unit had no idea. But when it was all said and done, Gray showed up in time because Ansel had called him. And I didn't even talk about it, but I did like the fact is that Sue Lin is the one that gave Dex the gun. And, you know, for her to kind of, it's like, you know, essentially wanting to know how Dex was going to, you know, potentially, you know, end this situation too, and gave it to her to protect herself. So, but Wolf kind of shoots at them and everything, and, you know, it's because at the end of the day, it's sad because like, especially for Dex, it's like you were sitting there kind of giving me that sob story about Benny, like you were kind of the commanding officer, you were supposed to take responsibility and stuff like that, but it turns out you're the one that murdered him, and it's like, yeah, it was either him or me. And obviously all this like gets Dex flustered because all she can think of in this moment is Benny, and obviously a fight ensues, and it was like, oh, it could go either way. I was hoping like, oh, someone would get there in time, but luckily Dex ends it, you know. And, you know, when it's all said and done, the sad thing is, you know, because you see her at the grave with, at Benny's grave with Sue Lin, and they're drinking. I even love that story of like, oh, the first day you brought him over, when he brought you over, he was nervous, he had excited. Yeah, and she's like, yeah, and I broke your grandmother's face. It's like, oh yeah, that was Crate and Barrel. And Dex looks at her, and she's like, yeah, but it scared the living crap out of you, didn't? And it's just kind of like, but at the end of the day, it is that sad situation of Dex thought when it was all said and done, she'd get some relief, that she'd have some kind of peace of mind, but it didn't do anything. Like, and, you know, essentially, you know, Sulin basically brings up the point of like sometimes there's holes that are so big and like there's so things that are so deep that you can't fill them up. So basically like it might have brought some relief, but it will never completely fill that hole in either one of their hearts for this Benny situation, because it doesn't change the fact is that Benny's gone, you know? And so, you know, so much left unsaid, you know? That's always going to be there with you. But the point that Sulin says is basically to find a way to move on. You know, it's kind of like move on, kind of move forward. Kind of, I don't think it's a situation of necessarily forgetting, but it is a thing of basically taking one step ahead, you know, at a time, kind of moving forward to the future, you know, not kind of being drowned out by the past. Then there's the whole situation with Miles that basically he's getting suspended. He's going to be up for review, but he's like, yeah, here's my badge. I was like, yo, I thought, because there's multiple ways to kind of interpret this, because my thought initially was like, you know what, the badge actually holds me back. I thought that's the lane he was going to go down. And remember, his dad offered him a job, so I thought maybe he decided to kind of take law enforcement into it. I mean, granted, with everything he's under, the cloud of, you know, situation he's under right now, I was like, maybe that's not possible. I mean, maybe it still is, because I'm sure his dad's in a powerful enough position to kind of get strings moved along, but they did set up that plot line of his dad wanted him to work with them, so that could be an opening. But I thought it was really interesting for Miles. It's like, because she's like, you did what you did. You believed that, you know, Dex was innocent the entire time. So you did. But for him, it's like, I didn't do it because I thought Dex was innocent. There's a part of him that's like, believed that she was innocent, but he mainly did it because he's like, after everything she's been through in her life, I didn't want her to go down for this. So it was more so me looking out for a friend. So, but for him, it's like, I crossed the line. Like, this badge means something, and I kind of disregarded it to help, you know, and to compromise the case. And then at the same time, I also betrayed a friend. A friend of mine almost died because of all of this too. So there's conflict between like what the badge represents and what he kind of wants to do, and he's kind of at odds with himself. And I thought that was such an interesting kind of contradiction of like the badge getting in the way. It's kind of the reason why you weren't able to kind of help Dex the way you wanted to, but helping Dex the way you did ended up compromising the badge, this thing in this career that you wanted. So it's like, for Miles, he's like, I need to keep it for me for now. I need to walk away. I need to figure out who I am right now. So I'm like, I'm curious, like I said, does that entail kind of working for his dad for a little while? I don't know. And then we get the thing about, you know, it's like, oh, Gray's in bed. And it's like, oh, your dad's here. He's like, oh, great. And then lo and behold, some other dude walks in. I'm like, what the hell is this about? Oh, your dad came here to do a job. I was like, I knew it. Like that, like I said, that line about like, oh, they got third. I was like, that line seems suspicious, but I was like, I'll let it go. SOB, it's like, so for him, he thought like, oh, my dad changed. And it's like, I guess it's a thing of like, he's secret, like even with his new family and stuff like that, he's been living a double life. And so now it's like Gray became the criminal he did because his dad was a criminal, and his dad basically taught him to kind of how to survive that way. And it's like, oh, after all that of like, oh, me thinking you were changing, even he told Dex, it's like, oh, actually him being here, I actually kind of enjoyed it. Now it's like smack dab in your face of like, oh, my dad was just using me. He stole something and he bailed before paying whatever it is. And it's like, and now he's left Gray to kind of pick up the pieces yet again, because Gray had to pick up the pieces when he disappeared all those years ago. And now it's like, now, you know, the question then becomes like, you know, Mike's family, his new family, his wife and his new son are all going to be like caught in the middle of all this too. So, and now it's like, it's dragging Gray back into that criminal world to a certain extent. So that's a whole complicated thing. And you have Gray kind of sitting there smiling like, I believe that bastard and he conned me. You know, so there's that angle of things. And then we got the whole situation at the very end where it's like, oh, like Tuki's up there cleaning up Dex's place, and it's like, yeah, you have he's like, yeah, Ansel and his girlfriend broke up. And she's like, what? When did that? It's like, you were busy with stuff. But the fact of the matter is he invited her over. And I was like, the entire time I was like, it's what I think it is, isn't it? And it turned out to be the case. It's like, Mom. And it's like, right. Which I think is so interesting. Why contact Ansel and not get in contact with Dex? Because we know you're on the run from somebody powerful. So like, or on the run for whatever that is, but whoever it is, like you're running from, why would you get in contact with your family after? Why now? Is it because, I mean, why just her specifically? What about their dad? And because like the thing I'm wondering too is like, maybe she picked Ansel because Ansel was going to be the one that's more likely to listen to it, because if she tried to get in contact with Dex, it wouldn't have been possible. The question did, because maybe that's why Ansel was kind of, in the past he had asked all those questions about his mom, like maybe either she reached out or maybe somehow he found a way to kind of track her down or something, because he had previously earlier in the season been asking questions about her and stuff like that. So I'm like, So obviously that's an element, because once again there's still that storyline of like that Dex learned from her aunt, like, oh, like her parents went on a run, they had to leave Dex and Ansel behind to keep them safe from who or whatever it is that they were running from, that they felt like, oh, we would have been in danger. So I was like, what's that about? Because I was curious too. I was wondering if any shape or form was that tied to what went down with Benny, and it's like, no, that is 100% a separate story. So their thing is completely its own thing too. So then it becomes a question of like, well, what does that mean? It's like I said, once again, why is it just your mom? Where's your dad? You know, why now out of any time to make contact? Like, something must have arisen. Is it going to be a situation of they're going to try and take Ansel away? And she's like, whoa. It's like, you've done a great job, but we'll take over. And it's like, no, Mom. You guys weren't here for Ansel. I was. You left him in a home, and I got him, and I've been raising him, you know? So, especially because there's a whole complicated thing of, let's not forget, Dex, Gray, and Ansel, but more so Ansel is her foundation, and without that, like, things kind of tend to fall apart. But I mean, now that all this Benny stuff is dealt with, maybe she can be closer to recovery, because obviously it's like that chapter is closed, but now like a whole other chapter is open with like, oh yeah, my complicated family situation and what that necessarily entails from my life, you know, stuff like that. Has to, you know, I'm curious to kind of see like what that could possibly mean, not only just storyline wise for like, you know, once again why they left, but also like what this means for Dex, what this means for Ansel, because it seems like Ansel is a lot more forgiving, because he's like, oh, he's the one that set this all up. Because I think for him, like I said, that's why I get the feeling like him and his mom have been in contact for a little while, and he's you know, trying to, because maybe she was reluctant at first, but he acted as a mediator, so maybe she was trying to work around it, try to make it so that it would be when Dex was gone. But now it's like, oh, Dex, I wasn't expecting you to be here, because Ansel probably, you know, acted as a mediator to try and bring it all together without either party knowing what was going down, or maybe she already knew. Whatever the case may be, a lot of questions to keep in mind. At the time of me recording this, it hasn't been confirmed whether or not Stumptown is renewed or canceled. Obviously, I'm pushing and hoping for that season 2. This is a really good show, and I'd love to see where all the stuff I brought up previously, what that would mean for a season 2. What other cases Dex would have to deal with next season, like what the police situation is going to look like, particularly with Miles out of the way. Like, is there going to be a new detective she'd interact more with? Maybe that'd complicate her relationship with Lee. I mean, it's not like her and Detective Lee have that much of a relationship, but it would kind of make things a little weird and awkward, because it's like, oh, Miles went to bat with you, he kind of walked away from his badge and everything, so maybe she'd be a little resentful. Maybe Cosgrove would. They'd be less likely to be like, oh, we're not going to let you just walk in because you don't have Miles here to kind of back your play. Maybe there'll be a new detective kind of coming more to the forefront. Obviously, big question, where does this all lead Gray and Dex? Because I feel like that's in game, but at the same time, who knows if that's really in game? Obviously, I know it's a funny choice of words. Hey, obviously, Kobe Smulders, you know, part of the MCU, Maria Hill. So yeah, I know, but I wasn't doing that on purpose. But it's just like, it's so interesting that ends up being the titling for like relationships. Oh, we're in game. I think it's kind of interesting, man. Regardless, tangents and all that, but I'd be so, I really hope that this does get a second season, because I'd love to see where all it would, you know, where it all take us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good